When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see, can a man save a child and save himself at the same time? After all, there are creatures out there that can make you question everything. The night is dark, the night is long, and the night is grey. Hey guys, and welcome to YakWaxLips. My name is Michael, your point and click adventurer, and today we're shedding light on The Night is Grey, a point and click adventure game from Whalestork Interactive. Here on YakWaxLips, I give you news, reviews and more all about point and click adventure games, so if you love to point and click, please do so over the like, hit subscribe for more and turn the bell on too. The Night is Grey throws us in straight away as a man comes tumbling out of a dense wood, panicked and somewhat dazed. This bearded chap is Graham, our protagonist. After slowly getting his breath back, he cleans his glasses and we're off. It's not long until we reach a small house that's all but abandoned except for a small 7-year-old girl pointing a rifle at us. After proving that we are not here to hurt anyone, together Graham and the girl, Hannah, will have to leave the safety of the house and travel through threatening woods, abandoned mines and intimidating construction yards to get her safely back to her grandparents. But it's never safe being alone at night with a never-ending sense that you're being followed by monsters and your past. Graham is not a hero. He smokes, he's rough around the edges and his life is stuck in a deep crevice and has been for some time. He's a grouch. Hannah, however, is a playful thing, full of optimism and questions. It's a classic pairing. We never play as Hannah in the game, but she often shares important puzzle information and inventory items. The Night is Grey is split into 6 chapters, each chapter a separate part of the island we're on. Woods, mines, there's a park as well. Once we move from one chapter to another, we can't go back. Although we're desperate to get Hannah back to her grandparents, there's a quiet gentleness to Graham that slowly starts to crumble and corrode inside of him as the game continues. The question still stands as to not just what was Graham running from in the woods at the start, but also why. Why is he in this situation? His self-loathing is spat out on occasions as he talks to Hannah's cuddly toy, a Whalestork nonetheless, little side note to the developers. Although these are silly deviations from the story, what they show are the psyche of Graham, and how as the story progresses, the more he doubts and questions himself. It's also a template for the plot too. Will they ever leave the forsaken forest? Each time one door opens, another closes. Graham is a middle-aged man with problems, and so he walks slowly, stops and exhales when he looks at the situation, and even in a state of panic, decides that slow and steady will get there rather than running. What this creates as a whole is a sense of loneliness in Graham. It's like he's almost given up already. This is not a game where you'll be running from rabid beasts at any point. The pace is slow, the story drip-fed, and the interactions short and often terse, even with himself or the Whalestork toy. To get from chapter to chapter we have to solve puzzles. It's a point and click adventure game. And The Night is Grey has a varying range. What I will say is that I don't think this is a game for point and click beginners. What it excels at is the design of these puzzles. Some look pretty easy from the outside, finding codes and picking locks, but to do these we often need to read through documents first and pick out slight clues. Turning on an electric fence is an example here, where we need to figure out a number, but we can't get this number until we've picked up on a subtle clue in a diary. And also the thing can't be turned on anyway, as there may be a burnt wire. It's a game that makes you feel like you've worked hard for the outcome and gives you that smart feeling. There does seem to be a plethora of these small puzzles, a few in each chapter, and each with varying levels of difficulty. Alongside these are the inventory puzzles. These are more straightforward and shouldn't really pose an issue. I wouldn't say there was any moon logic in any of the puzzles, however I did manage to poke a hole in a can of soda, and I didn't really know why until quite a while after I had done this. That aside, the inventory puzzles all made sense. If we don't have a knife to cut something, then whatever is sharp and pointed that we have in our inventory, yeah, that'll do the job. We never really carry too much inventory, and when we use something and it's done with, Graham most of the time just throws it away, leaving our pockets lighter and only filled with what is useful. The inventory itself is hidden away at the top and pops down when you hover over it. Several times I whipped out my pad and pen to take notes of codes and numbers, as Graham doesn't do this himself. In one section we have to traipse through a mine, but the map we find shows very little, and our lamp guiding the way, it only lasts for a short time. Knowing your directions here is imperative, as otherwise you'll be left in the dark with nothing and, well, yeah, you can die. For some people this might seem like a frustration, but one of the joys of adventure games for me is not holding hands and working it out for myself. There is only really this one point in the game where you could die, so don't be put off if you're thinking back to those old Sierra titles. Ending the game with a page full of numbers and codes plus a full-size map just makes you realise how much fun you had in the game. A few times in the game, the look at option is required to expand a clue or discover something new. It's a little clunky here, as at one point I was walking around for a while knowing I needed something, but I couldn't find it. All that was required there was for me to look at something rather than using the left button to use it. The controls themselves couldn't be simpler. The left mouse button controls where we walk and what we interact with, and the right mouse button looks at things, which, like I say, sometimes yields a little bit more than we expect. We can also click the right button on each screen to fast travel to the next. Spacebar shows us all the hotspots on the screen too. There is no notebook, like I said, to keep track of what we need to do, nor is there a help system. My biggest annoyance of the game was showing me the directions I could go. For so long on one screen, I missed out on an entirely different section, as I didn't realise that I could go down on the screen. The paths drawn were pretty vague, and I accidentally hovered over it to discover it. After this, I made a point of moving my cursor over the entire screen, making my paths clear. You can save the game at any time. There are 4 save slots, but there is also an autosave function which saves every time something important happens. The artwork then, well, it's fantastic. Each chapter has their own colour palette that differs from the previous, but only slightly, and the attention to detail is staggering, from the leaves on the trees right through to focal locations such as a crane or a watchtower. On top of this, the characters have a slight cartoonish vibe. The detail of these is scaled back significantly. The two differing styles contrast each other in a surprising way, which I think works. The only piece of art I'm not wholly convinced by is the wolves. They're drawn in the same cartoonish way, which is great. It's the way that they walk which I feel is slightly off. The rest of the animations for both Hannah and Graham are brilliant. I love the way he just takes his glasses off nonchalantly and gives them a wipe, or every now and again just gives a bit of a sigh. In modern adventure games, it's become customary to have voice actors, but The Night is Grey doesn't have a word spoken at all. This is a design choice rather than a lack of funds, and one I can get on board with. The gruff exterior of Graham and the bouncy energy of Hannah, plus just a small handful of supporting characters, are silent, which leaves the sound design and music to do the extra job of adding emotion. I have to take my hat off to Bruno Broer, who both wrote the score and the sound design. Each chapter has its own musical motif that perfectly encapsulates the unease of the situation. It's reverb-filled piano, breathy wind and haunting strings. Considering the plot and the weight of the world is heaved onto Graham's shoulders, the dialogue isn't really that heavy. He's a very matter-of-fact guy. As the story goes on, Graham does start to get annoyed a little bit and swears somewhat, but we feel his frustration. We know there's a deep-seated anger in him that's trying to bubble to the surface. The Night is Grey is a piece of art with an ending that will stay with you after. A slow-burning thriller that looks at the horrors of the world both physically and psychologically, and with two contrasting yet endearing leads who play off each other wonderfully. It has a fantastic plot, creative puzzles, and gorgeous art, and the 10 or so hours that I spent there were wonderful, and this receives a 9 out of 10 from me. Thanks to Whalestork Interactive for the review copy of The Night is Grey. It's currently available for PC via Steam. If you enjoyed my video, please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Tune in next to my look at point-and-click adventure games out soon, and until next time, have a wonderful morning, afternoon or evening, whatever it is you're doing right now, and take care.